Right. Getting to know your patch. You are all probably embedded in your local areas to some degree or not. You will have a sense of it. For selection, I know for the Senate, and I know for selection for the Scottish Parliament, you will have had to have demonstrated your knowledge of your local area. Um, I love a map because it really helps me see the area and see what I have and haven't been and done. Um, when I'm running campaigns, we will have different colours for different leaflets, and we will mark off that each area has been leafleted with each of the leaflets. You end up with these maps with layers of colours that you have done these roads and you have understood and you have door knocked on those roads. But that's the sort of more practical side of it. Part of getting to know your patch is also like, what is the thing? What is the thing that motivates your area? What are the things that make your area tick? What are what's the issues with the potholes? What's the particular thing that's going on in your local park? What are the things that really make it what it is? That's part of why you're doing what you're doing, because you love it. And what are the things that are going to make it better? Um, so all different parties allocate different areas. So they call it, you can cut your turf, which is a Lib Dem phrase, or you can you take your ward and you split it up into areas, whatever the terminology you're comfortable with. It is a really good idea to get this sort of like this visual representation of your area and however you kind of best do that, and then you and understand these different areas. So you will know that there's particular roads where people have particular concerns about a certain house that's too noisy, or you will have, and if you don't know that, make sure you find out, because those are the kind of things that people are want to see and want people to demonstrate. It's that you care about and you understand the local area. So that is knowing your turf, knowing your area, knowing your ward, knowing your constituency. And I get for lots of areas that can be absolutely enormous. And it can be miles of understanding. And you will probably, touch on some parts more than others. And the other thing about this piece of it is you will also understand who is going to vote for you no matter what. Because if you're certain areas, if you're certain Labour areas, that is definitely going to happen, and they're embedded. They used to be a little bit less so now. But what are the types who you think are probably more likely to vote for you? Who are the ones who are the persuadables, the people who are going to come your way? What does that look like? That is also all about understanding what is in your area. And I'm going to say something which always depresses people, but students are great, but they don't vote, unfortunately. However much we'd love them to vote, they don't vote enough. In fact, at the last election, they dropped by 10% and voted even less than they normally do. So I always recommend focusing on residential areas, areas which aren't with lots of students. The great thing about students, though, is are good at getting out and campaigning. So there can be this piece where you want to tap into this kind of younger vibe. They may not vote for you, and in fact, I've had this happen, but they might go out and campaign for you. But it is like harness the sort of youth and vigor and all of that momentum. But don't focus on them. If you've got limited time and resources, focus on the people who are living in these residential areas. In London, that might be a terrace row, not dissimilar maybe if you're up in Cardiff, or it's how and who are these people. Understand that, and that will really help you. I suspect all of those who are running with parties, you'll have a lot of data, and you will have people within the party who have a good sense of the data that underpins it. If you're an independent, it's going to be a little harder, but there's lots of resources and places that you can find data out about your areas and what that means and looks like. Um, So again, this is the electoral roll and data and what sort of sits behind that. So I don't know if does everyone know the electoral register? Electoral roll lists the names, addresses of everyone who's registered to vote in a certain area. So if you are a party, you will probably already have your hands on this. It will be slightly outdated, won't yet be right and ready for the elections coming in May, but you can get hold of it. If you're an independent, you can buy it once the election period starts. This is something that is incredibly unfair, but that's the reality. The way our system works is that independents are a relatively new concept, actually, and we are trying to get it so it's fair across the board, but parties will often have bought the data beforehand. If you do not have data that sits on, different parties have different systems, but if you don't have, and I've run independent teams, you can use spreadsheets in Google. You can use, they're all free. So you can do this in other ways. You don't have to rely on the sort of data that comes through here. Always be careful with people's data. It's thoughtful and people will respect you for it. But the other thing we talk about here is how you end up targeting for during the campaign and targeting Facebook and Instagram ads. And you can do that by postcodes. So one of the pieces about understanding your patch and knowing your ward, knowing your constituency is know the postcodes that sit within it, because those postcodes prove dividends in the long run. You can target on Facebook and Instagram literally by a road. So in an ideal world, you will have come to a door and you would have said, "Hi, I am running to be your local councillor. I'm running to be your local Senate MS. I'd love to talk to you about what you care about." Da, 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 da. Conversation occurs. You've noted down all the information. You've understood that they really care about education and that that really matters to them. You walk away from that door. That information then goes into your Google spreadsheet if you're an independent, or into the system, the database that you're using, depending on which party. They all use different systems. And then you get an ad that goes from Facebook into their feed, and it goes, "I was just visiting with you talking about education. This is what I believe about education. This is our education policy." And they are like, "Wow, this person's amazing." They turn up at my door. They think they know what I care about. And now I'm seeing it in my social media feed. Like, that is a really nice way of doing campaigning. That's really good. But yes, any questions about that? Just ping. Um, money, oh, money. We would love it if we had some money, like for candidates across the board to stand. If the Electoral Commission had a little pot that they gave to every candidate and said, "Here you go, here's your £1,000 to go and spend on this election, enjoy and go." But that is sadly not the way it works. You have to raise money to stand. You have to use your own money. You have to use your own time and resources. That is the kind of the way and shape it is. We have had in the past candidates think that they're going to get reimbursed. Make sure you know what your pot is for this election, and you can find out now what you've got available from, if you're standing with a party, what they are comfortable and willing to spend and what they don't wish to spend. And if you need to be out raising, which broadly everyone does, you need to be raising money. So you need to be thinking about and how to do that. But this is the kind of like, what have you got to spend? It really helps if you've got a pool of money. It really helps if you understand that, because all of that makes the difference to how many leaflets you can do, whether you can do any digital advertising. Otherwise, it's organic, and how do you make things go viral? And that's time for another conversation. But it's like all of these pieces are part of your financial planning and budgeting. We will know probably by next, I would have thought, well, it'll be February, I suspect. We'll know all of the details around the exact financing. But it is usually, yeah, a regulated period is usually a certain amount based on the electors in the ward, and then that is you get a certain amount per elector, and then you get an additional amount on top to spend. So that's what you can spend, but that doesn't mean you have it. You have to find it. You have to raise it, and you have to think about how you're going to bring it together. In wards, you also get like joint, and there's slightly different spending limits depending. It is incredibly opaque. I always think the financial side of things. So it's worth just having a sense of this. And this is the latest information that we have. And there'll be more that comes out. And we will always try and get as much as we can do with the Electoral Commission. They're very helpful and they're really nice people. And as soon as we have some more, we'll get that over to you. But yes, think about all of this stuff now. Get your spreadsheet out. Think about how much you're comfortable sharing of your own finances, or if it's time, what does that look like, and how you can make that work. But it's worth thinking about all of this. Um, I'm just going to talk about two other things before we kind of this section comes to a close. Having worked out exactly how much you are willing to spend and how much you need to raise it. So, as with anything, this is like a campaign in itself. This little piece of fundraising part is another campaign that helps the broader campaign. We would love politics to be better funded. It just isn't. But there are people who are happy to help and support. You have got to be very clear on who you are and why you're standing. If you're standing for a party, there'll be pieces there. You can do events and you can do evening things like come and have a bit of a pizza and pay for it. Come and help support my campaign. Here's a little, I've got a crowdfunder going. This is what it looks like. It's always, always useful to think about the story that you're telling if you're raising funds from people. So, I'm here because I care about this community. I want to make it brighter for the future. I'm particularly worried about climate change. I'm particularly worried about et cetera, et cetera. What is the emotive ask that is part of your fundraising ask? Like that is definitely a piece of it. And yes, the sort of sense of urgency. I need this money in. This £50 will buy me 1,000 leaflets that I'm making that up, but go and have a look. You can go to your local leaflet place, see how much it's going to cost you, and then you can work out exactly what it is. And that sort of constant sense of like, this can really help. It will help my campaign. It will help. And you can make this all very visual, on a website. You can have it so that you've got like, I'm trying to raise this so I can stand to be your local spokesperson. I can be your voice in our community. I can, you can see all of those sort of types of messaging. That's really important. We've also got on here about who to ask, because I know it's really uncomfortable. I get it. And I think the British are particularly bad at this broadly. And that we sort of slightly circle around the idea of asking people around stuff. So friends and family and colleagues, it everything makes a difference. A couple of quid here, a coffee, what would be the price of a coffee there? People who sit within the same sort of, group or, I mean, I suspect Labour people have been tapped quite a lot recently, but like it's what's the hook that's going to get people interested in helping and supporting you. You might also get that they want to do something in kind instead, so they might want to have your HQ. So this ask can often lead to other answers that you hadn't necessarily thought about. Oh, do you know what? I don't want to give you money, but I will get the use of my printer. Use my printer. I will give you the use of X, Y, and Z. So it's like I don't want to contribute in that way, but I want to contribute over here. And always have that sort of like, yeah, that sounds good. I'm keen to have that. That would be really great. Um, so there are lots of different ways that you can ask people for money. Events, obviously, is a good one. There is a cost outlay for you. What's the kind of the thing that people are coming to? What is how you manage that? And obviously that's also can be quite tiring because you've got to organize the thing, you've got to get people there, you've got to, you hold a raffle or you do a coffee morning or whatever it is. There is also the kind of crowdfunder, that digital fundraising. If you're with a party, that might be something that the party are hosting on their website or they will want to be in charge of. If you're running as an independent, there are lots of different channels that do this. I always think if you can, having a one-to-one meeting with somebody, just broadly about anything that is the sort of core of campaigning, is that one-to-one, that meeting that you're having where you're actually in person and everything else revolves around that. Because that's the bit that always triggers the emotional response in people. I like this person, I responded to what they were saying, I thought, and it's the same within the fundraising. It really helps. And if you go to an event, somebody is hosting an event for your, the local ward candidates, the Senate candidates, expect to be able to speak and be able to talk at that point. 1 minute, 2 minutes about your story. And we'll come on to that. But those are these are useful things to thinking about planning in how you to harness that care for you, the passion for you standing for your community. That's what you want to really tap into for this.
So we will be regrouping back here a week on Wednesday, 7 till 8:15 p.m. as always. That session, look, I'm going to put it in the chat here, is called Telling Your Story. So we'll be looking at some more of the content that we've got on Kajabi, but this time really thinking about how you talk about who you are, what you bring to the role, kind of your kind of USP. So I think that we find that's really fundamental for all of your doorstep conversations, all of your campaign literature, if you've got hosting. So it really forms the basis of all the work that you're going to do going forward. So we love talking about telling your story, and we talk about it most sessions, even when it's not that specific one, but it'll be a really good foundation. And then through November, we'll have Patricia again with us working on public speaking skills to go out and then present ourselves publicly. Cool, so I hope you found that super helpful, really like into the nitty gritty. We're here if you need us in the meantime. I'd love if anyone wanted to pop some comments in about how you found this evening's session while we just go to a wind down, but it's been such an honor to spend the evening with you. Thanks for giving yourself this time to reflect, take stock, do a bit of learning about what might come next. And we'd love to see you here in 10 days' time. Oh, we think you're amazing.